I want to share a couple of things with you this morning regarding who you are realizing who you are or who you were created to be. Do you know that oftentimes whenever you're pursuing your gifting or the calling that you feel is upon your life is the time when you will meet the greatest challenges that you'll ever face? When you start pursuing God's direction and God's purpose for your life, you will face opposition like never before. Because the enemy's motive is to discourage you. What he wants to do is convince you that it's easier to take the road less traveled than it is to take the high road, which leads to the fulfillment of your destiny. So you have to press. You have to press. There's a reason Paul said that we're to press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling. That we're to press because you have to push yourself many times against the opposition forces that are trying to discourage you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be honest with you. When you're pursuing the calling of God upon your life and the development and discovery of your gift, sometimes you can't see God with the natural eye. You can feel and sense His presence with your spirit, but with the natural eye, sometimes you can't see God. As a matter of fact, sometimes when you're pursuing God's aim and God's purpose for your life is the time that you can see Him the least. Once again, I think that's the reason Paul said we walk by faith and not by sight. See, sometimes we are pressed on every side, but not forsaken. Sometimes that pressing is not to reveal to God or to others what's going on inside, but to reveal to us what's going on inside of us. Because many times the greatest obstacle to our fulfillment of our destiny and purpose in life is not the opposition from without, but is the opposition from within. Remember when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees about what they eat and what they drink, what was lawful and what wasn't? And He said, listen, it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles you, but it's what comes out. So what He's saying is, what's inside of you is what you need to be more concerned about. And so in our lives, as we pursue our destiny and as we understand what we were created for and what we were created to be and to accomplish, it's important that we look inside of ourselves and see what may be going on internally that is hindering us from receiving the fulfillment of that promise. I want you to look at, now we don't have time to go through the Bible and look at every person that God chose to use. But there are three prominent figures that I want you to look at just for a moment, just to give you an idea of how God works and how His choosing comes about in your life and some of the things it produces. One of the most outstanding figures in the Bible is Moses. Moses is known as God's deliverer of Israel from over 400 years of Egyptian bondage. Moses was raised up in the house of Pharaoh by Pharaoh's daughter, but Moses was the slave, was the son of Hebrew slaves. Because Pharaoh had put out a decree that no more male Hebrew children would be born, Moses was put into a makeshift raft by his mother and sister and put out into the river, released into the river, and was taken into the house of Pharaoh and raised under Pharaoh's household. The son of Hebrew slaves. Yet God raised him up to be the deliverer of Israel. But look at what Moses went through. Now we tend to think about the years when he was the favored one in Pharaoh's household. But once he began to discover his destiny and his calling and purpose, which inherently began to come forth through him when he saw the oppression of the Israelites, what happened to him? He was taken prisoner, beaten, and thrust out into the wilderness. But even in the wilderness, it didn't change his purpose and his destiny. As a matter of fact, it wasn't in Pharaoh's household that Moses was best equipped for his calling. It was actually in the wilderness where he spent, 40 years? So sometimes your wilderness may be a necessary time of preparation for your destiny. Look at, my goodness, look at Abraham. What did God tell Abraham? You're going to be the father of many nations. Your seed is going to be like the sand of the sea and the stars in the sky, so numerous you can't even number them. And he's childless. He's childless. Now, in the natural, who would ever conceive, be able to comprehend that a man who's childless is going to be the father of many nations? That his seed are going to be like the sand of the sea? That didn't make any sense. But even though he was childless, didn't change the fact that he was destined to be the father of faith, the father of many nations, with seed so numerous that you couldn't number it. But look at what happened in the process. After God promised him he would have a child, have a son, what happens? He loses faith. His wife says, well, maybe when God said that, he didn't necessarily mean it was going to come through me because I'm barren. Even though the angel said, your wife, Sarah, shall bear you a child. Sarah says, take my handmaid. Go unto her. And Ishmael's born. And Ishmael was not the child of promise. Ishmael was the child of flesh, which brought the flesh into the scenario, into the situation, which caused division and strife. But it never changed the fact that God told Abraham, you're going to be the father of many nations. It never changed it. Watch this. Watch this. David. Look at David. Greatest king Israel has ever known. What was he? A sheep herder. Taking care of his father's flocks. But while he's taking care of his father's flock, he fights a lion and a bear and kills them. He's herding sheep, but inwardly his destiny is to be the greatest king Israel ever knew. He finds himself hiding in the caves of Adullam from Saul, who's seeking to destroy his life because of envy and jealousy and hatred, yet he's still destined to be the king of Israel. He's sleeping in a cave with a bunch of vagabonds that followed him, a bunch of misfits, but he's still destined to be the king of Israel. You have to realize no matter what your stage may be in life, what your position may be, or what your status may be, you have to determine and you have to understand what you were created for and what you were destined to be in order to become it. You cannot allow where you are now to define where you will be or what you will become.